There are reports today that Defence Minister Linda Reynolds called Brittany Higgins, quote-unquote, a lying cow. Now, if a senior public servant or business executive uses that language in a workplace, it could very well lead to disciplinary action. So the question is, why are the leaders of this country, that is, ministers and parliamentarians, held to a lower standard than the rest of us?
Anne Aly.
Thank you, Luther, for that question. And I think you reflect the tone of many Australians who are watching what's unfolding in Parliament and thinking exactly the same thing. If that was me or if that was my workplace, I know what would have happened. And why do parliamentarians, why are politicians above the standards that Australians are held to? Why are they not being held accountable? Why do they keep getting away with things that we wouldn't get away with? You know, when we're elected to represent our constituencies, we're elected as one of the people. Not as being above the people, not as being different from the people, but as being one of the people. And as being one of the people, we should lead by example. I completely agree with you that what we are seeing over the past 3 weeks does an incredible disservice to our democracy, does an incredible disservice to the idea of representation, and that those of us who hold high office in Parliament reflect the wishes, the concerns, the diversity and the standards that Australians expect and that we expect of Australians, that we expect of our nation.
Susan McDonald, I note that Linda Reynolds, your colleague in the Senate, did not deny having called Brittany Higgins a lying cow.
So I think one of the other things that I would say to you, Luther, is that the Senate, I've been in the Senate for nearly 18 months, and one of the things that I have found most surprising is how robust it is. And in fact, looking at the school kids here tonight, I think about the school kids who line the top of the Senate chamber to come for question time. And I have to tell you, I don't think it shows us in a good light. And the last 2 weeks have been incredibly tough on Senator Linda Reynolds. She is a very capable minister, but more importantly, she is an incredibly compassionate woman and a great leader. And this has rocked her to the core because she feels so strongly for her team and the women in her lives because of some experiences in her past. So
do you think her behaviour demonstrates that, if indeed she did say this?
I think what her behaviour demonstrates is that she's very human. And I know that I've said things that I regret, and she has apologised to her staff for the words she used. But I do think the process of Parliament and the performance of the Senate is incredibly tough. And she's a very kind and decent person who was caught saying something that she has said later that she regretted. I think we should do well to reflect on what makes us human and some of our frailties.
Well, to be honest, there is nothing human or compassionate about calling an alleged rape victim a lying cow.
Yeah.
And I do note that Senator Reynolds, in her defence, has claimed that she wasn't referring directly to the rape allegations, but to what she said about what followed, essentially what happened in the workplace in terms of the support. But I'll tell you who'd had a bad week in the office. It was the staffer who got raped, not Linda Reynolds. And she should apologise to Brittany Higgins for those remarks, and she hasn't.
We need to note that it is an alleged rape at this point. Dhanya Mani, you've worked in Parliament, you've dealt with bosses. What do you make of these reports that Linda Reynolds said those words in relation to Brittany Higgins, whatever the context?
Well, the first thing that I have to point out, and that I regret, you know, in relation to the comments that we've just heard from a parliamentarian federally, is that this conversation is far too focused on enabling, justifying, forgiving, allowing anything, any conduct, no matter how sexist, no matter how misogynistic, from any person in political office. At what point is enough enough? A lying cow, really? That's meant to be language that we're meant to look on as a woman's kindness and compassion.
But is this exclusively about the Liberal Party or the coalition, though? I mean, are we talking about a broader political culture?
I think we're talking absolutely about broader political culture. I think you know, it's been unfortunate and sad that we've not seen people standing up from all sides of politics, whether that be the Labor Party, whether that be the Nationals or the Greens, and saying that they need to take ownership of this issue as well. This isn't just something that occurs within the Liberal Party. But I think for there to be an environment that exists in which an extremely senior woman in politics felt that she'd be able to say that somebody who is extremely traumatised and has come forward with rape allegations is a lying cow, is a reflection of just how broken our parliaments are, of just how misogynistic our parliaments can be, and of the gaslighting and abuse that parliamentarians are prepared to put at the feet of survivors. Because it's one thing to say in her statement, oh, well, I didn't call her a liar about the allegations. Well, you're trying to smear her about everything else. What does that say about the respect that women in the most senior offices in this country have for women who are coming forward about these things? And I think it's something that our senior female politicians really need to look on the inside about, and they need to question, have I internalised misogyny? Am I a part of the problem now? And frankly, I'm sad to say that Linda Reynolds is part of the problem. And, you know, as our questioner has said, usually there'd be disciplinary action. There needs to be disciplinary action.
Kate Crawford, you work in big tech. This is an extremely male-dominated environment. How do you observe this conversation and the events unfolding in Australia right now?
Well, I mean, it's been extraordinary. I have to say that I think Australia is having a moment. I think this is a time in the country where we're all stopping to say exactly how is this occurring in the highest offices of the land. And it is part of a broader structural problem, I have to say, across male-dominated industries. And certainly I see this across technology as well. Just in the last few weeks, we've been seeing a complete scandal playing out at Google, where we're seeing senior women being fired. And again, it's the same gaslighting. It's this same undermining of women's authority and of their voice and of their stories.
What is gaslighting? Not everyone uses this term, but it's frequently used today. What does it mean? What happens in a workplace that's gaslighting?
I mean, it's a really good question, because I think it plays out in different ways. But it's really about how you try to retell someone's story or to try and essentially undermine their voice. And you can do that by just saying their story didn't happen, or by attacking their character. In the
Or
case
they're a
of,
nice person,
or
so
they're
it's okay.
Precisely. Or they don't really know what they're talking about, or that's not exactly what happened, dear. It can be a form of deep kind of patronising attitude, or it can be an intentional way to undercut the truth of a statement if it looks like it might actually harm a person.
Could it also be what happens when someone's defending themselves about something or trying to explain something? I mean, is it easy to define gaslighting and say that's an example of that?
Look, you're absolutely right that when it comes to these sorts of situations, we're talking about stories versus stories. But the question is, how do you actually deal with this in a diplomatic and sensitive way? And I think what we've seen over the last week has been absolutely shocking. And it is a sign that we need much deeper training, sensitivity and concern, particularly when it comes to parliamentarians.